Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Johnson, and I'm reading from my book, I Know Where I've Been, I'm Just Not Sure Where I'm Going. I'm reading the first chapter, Relax, Trust. My home phone rang. Trying to collect myself, I could see from my clock that it was 1:30 a.m. in the morning. I cleared my throat as best I could and answered. It was Karen, a professional acquaintance who was beginning to have anxiety attacks on a regular and systematic basis. Single, she started to lose her business at the same time she had lost her relationship. And now she was beginning to feel inner stress on a systematic basis as well. She attributed her anxiety attacks to the time she left her first consultation with a bankruptcy lawyer to which I had referred her to. As she had left the office, she became very aware that her life as she knew it seemed to be falling apart, and she had no idea what she was going to do in the near future. "I'm at the beach," she said on the phone. "Can you come get me?" I knew Karen pretty good by now, so there was no reason not to go to her aid. There are times when middle-of-the-night calls have to be taken with discretion, especially from a single guy like myself. You can't always go in the direction someone who needs your help wants you to go. They taught us in seminary that you should never put yourself in jeopardy by going to a place where you could be in danger, physically or emotionally. When I was young, I tried to follow those guidelines pretty close. Even then, I would sometimes get myself in trouble. It says one of the wisest things that Billy Graham did in the early years of his ministry was not to allow himself to be with another woman alone. And he always had either his wife or another staff member accompany him at all times. Indeed, some of the best ministries and businesses have been ruined by the problem of indiscretion. But as I got older, I found I wasn't quite as careful, probably because I've come to know myself and learned my own limits, and my own values have developed and changed over the years, even those concerning my relationships with women. So when Karen asked for help, I knew it was a cry for personal pain, and I should try to help. She gave me directions as to where she was, and I told her I'd be there soon. However, I must admit that I did not hurry as I probably should in an emergency. Instead, I turned on the coffee intended for early morning, not this early, and grabbed some go-to-the-beach in an emergency clothes, which consisted of some jeans and a freebie shirt from Sprint for using so many minutes on their phone. I finally jumped in the car and hit the empty street to the beach, parking it approximately where Karen had said she would be, and walking towards the ocean. Smell of the water was invigorating and refreshing, warmth of the night under the moon glow pleasant, and as I got to the sand, I could see Karen sitting and staring at the water. I sat down next to her with a, "Hi, you okay?" She started to cry. "I feel so depressed, so hurt. I've cried and cried. It doesn't do any good. I'm not sure I even want to go on living." They taught in graduate school that any mention of possible suicide is a desperate cry for help, no matter how easily spoken or utilized for the purpose of manipulation. I said nothing. I listened enough to Karen to know that the problem was loneliness and money. "How does one find oneself? What do I do?" she asked me, and of course interrupted my own thoughts. I guess as a counselor I'm supposed to have all the answers, but as is often the case, I didn't. I didn't know what to say, and so I did the only wise thing. I said nothing. Often all someone wants is someone else's ear, a chance to talk when the rest of the world usually doesn't listen, but you never know if just listening is enough. So we stared at the moon, felt the freshness of the breeze, and beheld the majestic sight of the sky meeting the waves. Excuse me. I spoke only for the purpose of acknowledging her pain. It always helps me when I see a view like this, that there is a greater picture than we can see. A world bigger than our own personal universe. Profound? Well, not really. Maybe. But somehow I knew it was not enough to calm Karen's inner storm. I took her for coffee at an all-night restaurant. She seemed to be a bit calmer, but I could tell from her facial expressions, still very troubled. I said a quiet prayer for her as she got out of the car, and I watched her go into her house. 3 months had passed. I had not heard from Karen at all, and I grew busy in the everyday responsibilities of life. I was walking down the hall with my mind on whatever when I saw a beautiful young girl dressed in a very alluring skirt and blouse near the reception area. I could barely hear this attractive figure say, "Is Dr. Johnson here?" Amusingly, and with song in my voice, I almost jokingly said, "I'm here." The lady turned around. It was Karen. "Karen," I exclaimed, "you look beautiful." "Thank you," she said. "Have you got a minute?" "I always have a minute for you," I said. We sat down at my desk and she talked of success, of happiness, of enjoying life. Business had suddenly had a turnaround. She stated she was doing very well. She thanked me for being a friend. "Well," I humbly noted, "I didn't do very much. But tell me, what made the change? What happened to you?" "Remember that night you met me on the beach?" she said. Well, I was still troubled. And about a week later, I felt even worse than I had ever felt. I talked to my ex-boyfriend, and he was meaner than ever, stating he had started a new life, and I was not to bother him anymore. I had creditors calling day and night. It got to the point where I felt I couldn't stand it, so I decided I was fed up and I'd go to the beach and end my life. I went to the same place where you had met me the week before, and I sat down and began to think how I would plan my demise. Should I simply drown? Should I be more dramatic? So while I was sitting there during the time of my greatest frustration, I couldn't even cry, which made tears come to my eyes without any sound. And then I felt like someone was behind me. I thought it might be you, so I turned around. There was nobody there. So I turned and continued to look at the ocean, and then I felt the presence again. This time I got scared that someone was about to hurt me. So I looked around again, and still nobody was there. I even called out and asked, "Is anybody here?" There was no answer. And then I heard a voice, just as clear as I hear my own voice right now. It said, "Relax. Trust." Again I looked around. I thought I was going crazy. I tensed up, as if my entire body was questioning what I heard. And then I heard it again. "Relax. Trust." Suddenly I felt a peace like I've never known. God was speaking to me. Keith, and he was doing it through either one of his angels or Christ himself, maybe. The rest of her visit was a bit of a blur to me. She said some more words and then said her goodbyes and that we would go together again soon. I've seen her twice since that visit. I went to her business one day to check on her, and staff and customers surrounded her. You could hardly get to her. She was so busy. And then I saw her at a party where she announced her engagement to this new man that she had met. Did God really visit her on the beach that night? Who am I to say? But the results of Karen's life, the peace and the prosperity that she now knows, she attributes to his concern during her night of intensive struggle. She's convinced that God cares for each one of us personally and is intensively involved in every aspect of our life. When we hurt, he hurts. When we cry, he cries. And if we're willing to listen, he will speak. Are you struggling? Are you trying to solve some kind of problem? You feel depressed? Lonely? Is there some inner turmoil in your life that constantly plagues you? You feel lonely, desperate? Like you're the only one? No one cares? I think there's a bigger picture than we know. I heartily recommend that you and I take Karen's advice and heed the voice that spoke to her on the beach. Whoever said it, relax, trust. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 probably says it better than any other. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Thank you.